All right, wonderful picturesque Austria. But what we're here to discuss is another twist in the MotoGP silly season. This has to do with the new satellite Yamaha team Pramac, and it's looming, incoming, yet to be confirmed, but certainly everything points to a decision to burn rookie vigor in favor of an all-experienced lineup. Miguel Oliveira has been linked to that seat forever, and it seems a formality that he'll put pen to paper on a Yamaha contract sooner or later. But the expectation was that Moto2 points leader Sergio Garcia or someone like him would take that second seat. And now Sergio Garcia has committed to another Moto2 season, and the reason he did that is almost certainly because the Pramac Yamaha ride is going to Jack Miller. Aleix Espargaro earlier this weekend was in a bit of hot water talking about that, because he sort of maybe said in a certain way that if he was Miller or if he was Franco Morbidelli, then he would consider stepping aside for younger talent, because guys like Miller and Franco Morbidelli aren't performing at their full potential right now and have been losing to their teammates for quite a bit. Simon, for MotoGP's sake, do you think it's unfortunate that Miller looks to be getting the seat that could have gone to a Garcia or somebody of Garcia's ilk?
Yeah, I mean, it's no one's job in MotoGP to look out for other riders. Everyone here is here to look out for themselves. And at the end of the day, everyone on the grid is selfish. It's the inherent nature of being a racer. They're the most selfish group of people you're ever going to work with. That's something we've come to expect. But there is a certain logic to the points that Aleix made, simply because it does feel a little bit like a few people on this grid are starting to see tug. There was an inevitability about Jack Miller's crash out of the race on Sunday when he was suddenly getting pressured by a few other riders, where there was other KTMs in the mix, and he was fighting really hard to be the top one of their riders, and he threw it down the road. It was like, oh yeah, of course he did, because that's what we've come to expect from Jack Miller, and we see it over and over and over again. It feels like trying to play the same record to a different record player, moving him under a Yamaha. I know he's done good work in the past doing development work with especially Ducati, but things at KTM haven't really moved on in his presence there. I don't know if he's the right person to finesse a Yamaha that they want to be a bike that's smooth and rider friendly, and to back into that level. I don't think he's the guy, considering his grab it by the scruff of the neck and beat it to within an inch of its life mentality that he seems to bring to what he's doing on the bike. I don't agree with the decision. I don't like it, especially whenever we've got younger, faster, hotter talent like Sergio Garcia. The Moto2 Championship points leader at the minute, looking like the most collected rider in that whole championship right now, and potentially going to be, we know now officially stuck in Moto2 for another year because there was no opportunity for him. Beyond that, the other thing is that I think he may have found himself a Moto2 ride somewhere, or a MotoGP ride somewhere else, if he'd had the opportunity to fully explore that. But it sounded like the thing with the Pramac Yamaha team was fairly locked in for him. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Jack Miller was thrust into the mix. I think maybe with a little bit of political soft power to help that along. And now we're in a position where Garcia is on track to be, I think, only the third Moto2 championship winner in history not to immediately step up.
No, we should say Garcia did have a bit of a stinker today, but on the whole, on the basis of the season's work, obviously,
he had a bit of a stinker here at the Red Bull Ring, but he still had a better day than all his title rivals. Ayogura didn't race today because he broke his hand in an injury.
And Fermin Aldeguer
might as well not have been here. Didn't score points, wasn't in the points all race. So he still limited the damage today.
Yeah. That is true. Let's get to the elephant of the room before we go back to the performance angle of it. You mentioned soft power. That is, of course, a reference to Dorna's I don't want to say well documented, but sort of well known in the MotoGP paddock desire to have a varied grid of nationalities, and specifically in Miller's case, he is the sole representative of Australia, which is good to have when TV talks come around. It's in certain TV contracts, it's in the contract, and payment depends on it. For others, it's just future contracts, what you're going to get. We've seen this weekend, I think, pretty decent proof that Dorna can't just say, you take that guy, because Trackhouse has hired not American rookie Joe Roberts, but Japanese rookie Ayagura for 2025. And, Trackhouse has been facing questions about that all weekend and was like, yeah, we know Dorna would quite like us to take an American, but, this is our decision. This is our performance assessment. We could be wrong, but this is what we wanted to do. For Pramac Yamaha, I guess there was not that conviction in having Garcia. It's a complicated one to look at, isn't it?
I mean, first of all, I should say, you say that the Dorna soft power is maybe a bit of an ambiguous thing. It's not. It's well documented in Moto 2 and Moto 3 that the Dorna directly influence who ends up at which seats. We've seen riders with signed contracts in the past get them torn up because it didn't fit with where Dorna wanted to place riders for TV. So it's in MotoGP it's rarer. But we do know that, for example, the contracted broadcast in the UK with TNT Sport has a clause in it that says that Dorna will do everything in their power to make sure there's a British rider in the Premier class. So we know that they're both contractually obliged and quite willing to make this happen. So it's not a huge surprise, and it's not a huge leap to believe that they're involved in this right now with Miller. The other thing is, from a Pramac perspective, they've kind of already given up on good results for the next few years. They're moving away from a Ducati that finished second in both races this weekend and qualified on pole position with Jorge Martin, to a Yamaha package that's going to be less competitive. We know it's going to be less competitive in the short term. Yes, in the long term, I think they've made a good bet. Yamaha are going to come back and perform the way we know Yamaha can again in the future. But in the meantime, they're kind of stepping down. They can afford to make decisions that are maybe a little bit more financially motivated. They can afford to take decisions that will look good to the bosses of the championship in their favour. And I think that Miller fits into that quite nicely, even if no one from Dorna has come along and said, we need you to sign this rider.
Let's talk about this from Yamaha's perspective then, I think, because obviously we don't know the contracts aren't signed yet to our knowledge, so we don't know what they will look like, who they will be with. It's Oliveira is supposed to be with Yamaha. There's a lot of uncertainty over what the exact mechanics of Miller's. We don't know the deal durations that are being put on the table. What we do know is Yamaha has a say in who Pramac will put on those bikes. What we also know is that in 2019 or 2018 for the 2019 season, Yamaha was in a situation where it was going to have Dani Pedrosa on one of its satellite bikes. Dani Pedrosa didn't take that satellite bike, decided to retire. Sort of out of nowhere, with really nobody else to turn to, with a guy in Moto 2 peaking at the right time, the satellite Petronas team just decided, whatever, he looks good. He can be a decent shot. That guy's Fabio Quartararo. You know what happens next. You've seen the MotoGP seasons that followed. You could argue, and I have argued, that Yamaha is in a much worse title drought right now if those circumstances don't happen. For me, that's evidence that you just have to try guys. You have to put guys on a MotoGP bike. There are no MotoGP rookie tests, which means that you don't really even have any kind of good idea what the fit will be between a rider and a bike. And certainly, Sergio Garcia has never had the peaks of Fabio, but you could already say that Sergio Garcia is a better Moto 2 rider than Fabio, and that he was a better Moto 3 rider than Fabio.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
If he didn't work, then it's, next man up.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly no shortage of able Moto 2 riders who have shown flashes of something. And you'd think that, if anything, the example of Fabio, historically, I don't know, we spoke about this earlier today, the example of Casey Stoner, you'd think it would encourage MotoGP factories, especially factories with a seat going spare, to roll the dice. And it's a little surprising that they're not.
It's really strange. I mean, you know what you're going to get with Jack Miller. You're going to get a rider who is going to qualify really well, who's going to be blisteringly fast if it rains.
Which is not nothing.
No, which is not something. It's something that Yamaha is lacking a little bit of late, and there is an argument for that. But they're going to get someone that's super fast in qualifying, really good in the wet, who delivers fantastic results out of nowhere at a couple of circuits a year, and then spends the rest of the season either falling off or having his tires burn out halfway through a race and disappearing back into the ether. He's been that character for, 7 of his 10 years in the Premier class. That is who Jack Miller is. Why not take a bet on something new and something better? Potentially better. Why not take a bet on a young up-and-coming guy? I mean, you sign him for a 1-year deal, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. There's another one coming through the ranks, Sign Sergio Garcia, run him for a year. If it doesn't work, tough luck, that's his fault. Sign Tony Arbolino for next year. There's always a succession of fast talents that you can try out. And a little bit surprised with Yamaha sticking with what everyone knows. Whenever they've already got Miguel Oliveira to come in as a kind of a project leader in that squad, as the on-track test rider, a la Johan Zarco at Ducati and now at Honda.
Or Jack Miller at Ducati.
Jack Miller at Ducati previously. You know, other factories have used that model well. I think Oliveira is a good rider to use for that model. He's got experience in multiple MotoGP bikes, and he's a little bit more consistent than Miller, at least in how he manages his races. So yeah, I don't understand the desire not to bring a rookie into it.